Welcome back to Take It to the House, episode number 6. Man, we're already 6 episodes in. Holy that's obliterated. Fleet.
Now we gotta bleep it twice. Thanks. Double the work.
I'm joined by Caleb and Thatcher as always. We took a week off last week just because there's a dead period with NFL and NBA, also MLB and NHL as well. There was nothing really going on last week until last Thursday or something like that. But yeah, everything kind of kicked off last Thursday again with stuff going on, but we will jump right into it. Carson Wentz released by the Commanders today as we're recording Monday, February 27th, which I don't find surprising at all because I think it is Sam Howell season at this point.
Yeah.
Or Taylor Heineke season. So, where do we expect Wentz to land? If he lands anywhere, starting, backup, where do we think he's going?
Go ahead.
I also just would like to add before we get going with this, Carson Wentz, them cutting him saved them about $26 million in cap space.
That's so crazy, man. The fact that he was going to cost them $26 million.
Aren't they over cap too, or no?
I think so. Which is so crazy to think that Washington's over the cap space when they don't even have a relevant roster.
No, because they have Chase Young. No, yeah, this is Chase's
first year, right?
Yeah, it's his rookie contract still.
Right, but other than that, who are you paying?
Terry
McLaurin, but
Curtis Samuel.
But that shouldn't be putting you over the cap. That's so crazy.
Well, you got to think receivers are getting big contracts now too. You see Cooper Kupp and Devontae Adams, and
I think Terry deserves a good contract though because he's so solid.
he's a really good. He's fast too.
Yeah, but to answer your question about Carson, I would be actually really surprised if he ends up on an NFL roster. And if he does, he's not going to sign on to be they're not signing him to be a starter. They would be. I could see the Saints signing him as a backup, but I don't know. We signed Andy Dalton. The Saints signed Andy Dalton, so I wouldn't even be surprised. But I don't see it. I think his time is done. And I think we saw it. We've seen him on 3 teams now, and he's been bad on all 3. He was good in Philly for that 1 year where he was MVP caliber and then got injured. But then after that, he got his job back and didn't play well and then got benched.
No, Nick Foles got benched first. Oh, no, wait. Yeah, you're right.
They traded Foles to Jacksonville that year after.
Yeah, the year after.
And then Wentz came back, and they had drafted Hurts, and then Wentz played and got benched for Hurts, right?
Yep.
Right, and then he went to Indy, and he was horrible in Indy.
Traded Indy, and then traded Washington the next year.
Right, and he was horrible in Washington too. I think Sam Howell has a lot more upside than.
And he put up clean numbers too.
And with Bieniemy calling plays, hopefully we see a very improved Washington offense.
We will.
Oh yeah,
we will.
That's also the highlight of this week.
Bieniemy.
Yeah,
and so something else I wanted to add because with the departure of one coach, there's a promotion of another. Matt Nagy is now the offensive coordinator in Kansas City.
I think that's fine. To be quite honest,
I like it because he can. It looked like if you watch the sidelines, right? He was able to talk with Patrick Mahomes, and they were able to have conversations, and they looked like they were buddies. I mean, he hugged Matt Nagy when they won the Super Bowl. It seems like him and Pat have a good connection, and so I think that played into a part of him getting the offensive coordinator role over somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, I think. The big thing too is that Bieniemy wanted to go somewhere where he could go call plays, and he wasn't calling plays in KC. He wants to call his own plays. So credit to him. I wouldn't have taken that job. I would have stayed with Mahomes and Reed as long as you can. But
at the same time, Andy Reid's also calling plays for Mahomes instead of Bieniemy. So
that's what I'm saying is that Bieniemy left so he could go call plays.
Yeah, and I think it's fair too because you're working with Sam Howell, who's a second-year quarterback. You can generally improve him as a player because
he
proved it the last 2 games of the year I'm just gonna I know Heineke and Howell are gonna battle it out over the summer, but I think
That's
Howell
gonna be a
will.
fun quarterback battle, to be quite
Yeah, it
honest.
is. It's like I could see Howell winning the job.
Yeah, I could
Though,
see either of them winning the job, and oh my gosh, and I think both of them are pretty competent like quarterbacks. Like they're not A tier, but they're
yeah,
good, and they have a really good. I mean, when you look at their offensive weapons, I mean, you said Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin, Brian Robinson was really really good towards the end of the season.
you got Antonio Gibson still. You got Logan
mhm,
Thomas
They have really good pieces, so I
and
think
Jahan
that'll be a fun
Dotson.
watch. And Dodson looked really good. He's a good 3, I think, is what they have him as right now, and I think
Yeah,
he's perfect for that.
And do
but
they have Logan Thomas, don't they?
yeah, I just said
Yeah,
Logan
that's what he
Thomas.
was mentioning. Yeah, so good offense for. I mean, weapons wise, it's a good offense to take over.
Oh yeah,
So something came out about an hour ago that the NFL competition committee is expected to have discussions about the third quarterback rule, which would allow teams to have an emergency quarterback in uniform, a 47th active player on game days in case of a worst case scenario situation like the 49ers in the NFC Championship game.
I don't find that super like. I mean, that 49ers thing was so rare. Like the only thing that I can think of that was weirder than that was it 2 years ago or a year ago when Denver, like when their whole quarterback thing, like they all had COVID and stuff like that.
yep.
That's the only weirder circumstance that I can really think of where it's like, the Niners went into that game, they were already on their third string. Third string goes out, they're on their fourth string. Fourth string goes out, they played with Christian McCaffrey. So
And Purdy without an elbow ligament.
So I just think that like okay, that's great. You just have an extra player suit up, but like I would be really surprised if throughout the whole season we even see any of those third string quarterbacks play because of 2 injuries that happened before that.
Well, that's the thing is just you got to have it in the back pocket. Like you just got to keep it like in case. I mean, we might, like you said, we're probably not going to see it, right? But it's just a good rule to have there just in case something like that happens again. You know what
Well,
I'm
that's
saying?
what I'm saying is I agree, and I think the surprising part to me is that wasn't a rule that was already in place. Like they should have already had like I mean, think about almost any other position you have 3 deep.
Mhm.
Like I mean, you could go to your seventh string wide receiver. You could go to your third or fourth string tight end. You can
Yeah.
go to your third or fourth string running back. So why not at least give there a third string quarterback? And that leaves you a little bit of wiggle room if you're a franchise who has some sort of quarterback who's like a project that you want to keep and not take on the practice squad and possibly lose. I think that's a really big plus is like certain players may get better opportunities that way.
Mhm.
And that's why the practice squad exists too, because it gives you extra space for players, that you want to keep, but not like actually having the team for right now. So like I think it just depends. Like most teams will have 2 quarterbacks on the roster max in case like they have more weapons somewhere else on defense, offense, say so. I mean, they also have special team spots reserved. So I don't know. Like, I don't agree with the rule, but I wouldn't be against it either. But the only change I would make, it gives you an extra roster space to have. So
Well, and
instead of having a
that's yeah.
53-man roster, you have a 54-man roster.
Well, and that's the thing too is that if you can have 47 active players now in the in the game, you don't have to have the third string quarterback.
Exactly.
But for teams who want to have it, they get like 49ers or I think this will benefit teams who will have quarterback battles too.
Yeah.
It's not going to benefit. I mean, it's not going to do anything for teams like Kansas City and Buffalo and Cincinnati, but like teams that are going to have like deep quarterback competitions is going to be helpful.
Yeah. And like with every player that's going to be drafted, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, all those players they're going to battle out. And by the way, all those quarterbacks are throwing at the combine next week or this week.
I thought Bryce Young was not doing that, but I thought CJ Stroud was.
No, Bryce Young's throwing.
Mm.
I'm pretty sure.
Unless I read that report wrong, which I swear I didn't.
Yeah,
Excuse us 1 second.
I this time of year for sports is
Oh,
like
sorry, you're right, Caleb. You're right. Pro day. That's
Which
what I read.
does that not make you a little bit nervous that certain play? While I understand that people are thinking that the combine is like pointless, it makes me a little bit nervous from a standpoint of like, why don't you want to go throw? Why don't you want to do this? Why don't you want to do this? It's like when Kenny Pickett didn't want to have his hands measured. It's like,
Yeah.
Why? Like Bryce Young, the question I feel like has been he's really small. He doesn't have the biggest arm. And it's like, dude, go throw. Like, go throw and not on pro day. Because can we just talk real quick about how useless pro days are?
Mhm.
They are absolutely
Zach
useless.
Wilson.
Thank you. I was just thinking that. It's like congrats. You threw a 40-yard bomb
off a back foot.
Off a back foot with no defensive pressure, no pads on, no helmet on. Like no crowd. No like dude, I think pro days are stupid and they have led to serious injuries. That's something that I believe needs to be taken out. Pro days should be gone. Because what's his name? The Michigan player this last draft, he was literally going to go in the top 10. He was like an edge rusher and he like tore his ACL or something in the pro day. Can't remember his name. I think he ended up going to Buffalo I can't remember his name, but like examples like that, I'm like, you have non-contact, you're not doing anything, and you have a bunch of scouts that are like, oh my gosh, it's so amazing when nothing's going on. You're not even in helmets or anything. So you might as well go do it.
For instead,
that's what I'm saying. You might as well go to the combine instead of do pro day.
It's also something to mention, as we're talking about Bryce Young and obviously, the potential. Alabama quarterbacks Bryce Young, real height is 5'10.5", according to Todd McShay.
That's also another reason why he's not.
He said, if I'm a GM, I'm scared to death of drafting him.
Of drafting Young?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's 5'10.5".
Real quick, sorry. David Ojobo was the name of the player, the Michigan player, and he ended up going to Baltimore in like the 3rd round or something. So
he ended up playing too.
Yeah, he did.
Half the year.
Yeah, and he looked really good, but that was something that, yeah. Okay, then let's do this for our little. If you're a GM, would you? Let's just say with the most realistic pick so far, even though there's been a lot of talk about Chicago, if you're Houston at 2, do you take Bryce Young?
No.
No. I am looking at Will Levis or CJ Stroud, personally.
To be honest.
Maybe even Anthony Richardson. Maybe even Anthony Richardson.
At 2, there's no way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think it depends on how the combine goes for him, too, because he's throwing.
But also, again, I think combine is a little bit like a pro day where it's like, okay, yeah, it's a little more full speed, but you still have no pads, you have no defensive pressure, you have no crowd noise. So still, that doesn't like if Anthony Richardson is at the combine and throws like a 65-yard bomb, I'm still not going to be like, you know what? I'm going to draft him. Like that's not what's going to sell me on drafting a player or not drafting a player.
Well, in pro days, you don't get to interview the player too.
Yeah, I think it sounds like a lot of teams have also been interviewing with Hendon Hooker. So I think he's the best quarterback in this draft, but because of his injury, he'll fall.
I would like to say no, taking Bryce Young at 2. I think Stroud, Will Levis, maybe Anthony Richardson would be good. But in my opinion, some Alabama quarterbacks are overrated. Look at Mac Jones. Look at
every other Alabama quarterback other than Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he doesn't even count because he's technically from Oklahoma. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like I feel like some Alabama quarterbacks are overrated, in my opinion.
There is one University of Alabama quarterback who is not overrated. And is Joe Namath.
Okay, but I'm talking about current.
In our lifetime.
I know.
I'm thinking about current, not some 3rd Super Bowl MVP. But I just think that if I'm a team, you interviewed Bryce Young, I think Bryce Young should throw at the combine. Pro days are stupid. Back to my question, where does Carson Wentz go?
I still don't think I don't think that he gets
a job.
I never heard from Caleb.
Oh, I have a place that he'll go. He'll go. He'll go to this. He'll go to He'll probably get an analyst job. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I could see him, going up there on ESPN or
he's not a good looking dude though, man.
No, he's not.
Prince Harry shit.
Maybe maybe he should pair up with Greg Olsen since Greg Olsen wants to complain about Brady taking his job.
Yeah.
I think he goes to Carolina. I think they give.
I'm fine with that as a Saints fan.
I think Carolina gives Wentz a shot. To be honest.
See, that would be so crazy though, because like they would have so many quarterbacks because that they're going to draft one. If they don't trade for one in the offseason, they're going to draft one.
They're losing Darnold, Baker. Okay, Baker's already gone though, but
they're losing Darnold.
They have Matt Corral.
So they have PJ Walker, who they'll keep because he's been competent. And then they have Matt Corral, and then they would draft somebody. And then maybe you're saying they would maybe trade for somebody, or they would take Wentz. So you're talking about maybe a 4 or 5
they need a
receiver.
Battle. No, they need a receiver.
They're not drafting receiver at 9. There ain't no way.
No.
Hold on. Hear me out.
Unless they trade for a quarterback.
Hear me out. Carolina signs Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz and Matt Corral compete for a starting job. Actually, no, all 3 quarterbacks.
And PJ Walker, yeah.
And PJ Walker. Like, is that not like the best solution you have right now? Like, Carolina has what, the 7th pick?
I thought they had, I think they have 6. Let me see. We've been having to pull up the draft order so much, y'all. We have not been able to remember it.
I know, because we haven't recorded it in a week too. But if I'm Carolina, I think they're more needed at receiver because they got rid of Robbie Anderson and they only have DJ. What's his bucket?
I knew it. Carolina has 9.
Yeah. Okay. So they have DJ Moore. That's it, pretty much.
DJ Moore's an elite wide receiver, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. So why not go draft a receiver at 9? Sign Carson Wentz or Derek Carr. Have him compete with PJ Walker.
See, if you sign Derek Carr, that's a different story. Derek Carr is an actual competent quarterback.
I think Derek Carr is still going to the Saints.
Well, I think so too. But I don't like any of the receivers that much in this year's draft to take them within the top 10. I don't like that, especially when AR-15 could still be on the board.
Yeah, and I think I can't remember his last name now. Thank you. Or that TCU receiver, dude.
Yeah.
Johnston.
Yeah. I would, if I'm Carolina, I would meet up with Carson Wentz if I was them.
I got something to say real quick, Zach. On your point about Carolina potentially, you think Carson Wentz is going to go there. Now that you mention it, I could see it, considering that Frank Reich is now the head coach of the Panthers.
Yeah,
that too.
And he might want to redo what they tried to do in Indianapolis, and what they did with each other in Philly, being the offensive coordinator in Philly and then all that stuff like that. But no, I think there's another team that could be at play for Carson Wentz here. If they lose out on the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes. Because I haven't heard this team named as a destination for Aaron Rodgers whatsoever, but they were always on my list. I think Tennessee for Carson Wentz. And I don't know why, but I got this gut feeling that if they want to look into Carson Wentz, they could. And see maybe hey, maybe we could sign him to a cheap, friendly team-friendly deal. Right? Let him compete with Malik, see what happens. Then what pick do they have in the draft, Thatcher? Do you have the draft pick pulled up?
I believe they're 11, so just outside the top 10.
They get a wide receiver, they get a tight end, something like that, and they'd be set. I don't know.
But I still think, you could have him battle it out, but I still would take Tannehill over Wentz right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they still have Tannehill.
I think that Wentz will end up somewhere as a backup and then maybe compete or get a job because somebody gets injured.
But if I'm any of the 32 NFL GMs, I'm saying no, thank you. It's not worth the money, and it's not worth XFL or USFL starting up soon too, right? So
it's already going.
Yeah. XFL's already going. XFL's going, and then USFL starts soon. So, yeah. I personally, like, I know it's new news, but like, I'm so like, I so don't care about Carson Wentz anymore. At least talking about him until he shows me something that's like of note to pay attention to. Because I mean, I didn't watch the only Commanders game I watched all year was the second to last game of the season, and it was only because my fantasy team was riding on it, and Wentz was not playing. But I watched Red Zone, and I watched Wentz. Literally, they were within 10 yards of getting a touchdown and winning the game, and he threw an awful pick, like so bad. Like you could have, I think they had one more down to work with. He could have thrown it away. It's just, I don't know. I'm so not impressed with him. And it's really sad because like his size and his arm strength and everything, he could have been like a Josh Allen, but he.
Thanks, Jadeveon Clowney.
Was not. Yeah.
Because we all remember in that playoff game when Clowney jumped on his head, and that's when he went down with the concussion, and then everything just kind of unraveled from there. I mean, he was before that. He was having like an MVP or no. That was not the same season.
Well, he was because he got injured in LA, I believe. He was injured at the Coliseum when they were playing the Rams, and he wasn't reaching for the goal line or something like that. It was like some sort of goal line scenario, and he tore his ACL.
Yep.
Yeah.
But Rodgers is out of this darkness retreat. No reports yet, but still likely to be traded. I still see him in the Jets or Vegas. What do we think, real quick?
I don't care. I'm so over Aaron Rodgers.
I'm so through.
Yeah, for real.
Like, and this is coming from like a fan perspective, but also like an aspiring like sports journalist, sports commentator perspective. I'm over it. I'm so exhausted by the topic.
It's every season.
He's being dramatic as always. And what I think too is I think he's completely screwing over an organization that has done everything that he's wanted.
Love.
Right.
Shown him nothing but
love. He's completely screwing them over because what he said was, when before he went into the darkness retreat, he said, I'm going to take some time. And then when I get back, hopefully I'll be closer to knowing, which basically means I'm just going to toy with them until they give me what I want or until I decide something else, and I'm going to completely screw them over. So I have a really hard time talking about Aaron Rodgers anymore because it's exhausting.
It is. I mean, Aaron Rodgers does have has a reputation of being a candidate for the Hall of Fame at some point, but I agree. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is just being stupid, and I think he just needs to make a decision and all that. So, when we come back, Thatcher, I'm sorry for interrupting you. We'll talk about hires.
No, good.
Talk about hires, NBA.
Maybe some draft stuff again.
MLB's spring season just started up, so probably touch a little bit on that. So we will be right back. We'll see you guys in a minute. All right, we are back. We are going to go over some hirings that happened, mainly with Denver, because they're the only hirings that have happened was with Denver's coaching staff. And then we're also going to talk about this other rule got submitted by the Los Angeles Rams about reviewing roughing the passer. And then we're going to cover some draft, some NBA, MLB, NHL, whatever we feel like covering. So I want to start out with this interview, reviewing the roughing passer call. I think this will be a good rule change if this is approved, because I think after that whole Tua Tagovailoa injury in week 4, they really changed the roughing the quarterback rule, and some calls were kind of bullshit. But I like the idea of the rule. I don't think it will end up like the pass interference rule. So what do you guys think?
I think that I agree with you. I like it. The one thing is, though, is there needs to be like some sort of like
it can only be reviewable when it has a really big impact or something like that. So like if it's like, a 3rd and 2 or like a 3rd and 10 or something like that, and then they call roughing the passer and they give them the first down, I think that's when it needs to be something that's like addressed, like making sure. Because like if you're getting a 2nd down and it's a first down or something like that, where it's just like little between the game moments, I don't really think it has as big of an impact. But like if it completely has the capabilities of changing a game either way, I think that's when it should be reviewable. I also think coaches should be able to challenge it
I was about to say that too.
yeah. And the thing is they would only really challenge it if it was a game changing sack or not sack, but game changing hit,
Yeah, like I think like in the college football rules, targeting is automatically reviewed. I think roughing the pass should be automatically reviewed either way, just to make sure it's a penalty, because sometimes there are.
Well, there was that one on Grady Jarrett, right, in Tampa, where the Falcons literally were going to beat the Buccaneers, and then he like touched Brady, and they called it, and that completely changed the game, and the Bucs went on and won it.
Exactly.
And that's a game when you look at it, in that particular instance. I can't remember what week it was. I know it was kind of later on. I mean, that division was so horrible that could have had major, major, major implications, because it was a divisional game, like it was within the division, and the Saints and the Panthers were only like 1 or 2 games behind the Bucs, and the Falcons were only 1 game below them. So it's just like that game had major implications, and it was ruined by that one call. So I think we do need to be careful though about overanalyzation. Like we got to be careful about like, okay, sometimes bad calls just need to happen, and we can't go over them 30 times before we make another decision.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys think they should be able to challenge, like if it was pass interference but not called, do you think they should be able to challenge that?
I think we already saw the kind of the fallout with that a couple of seasons ago. After the New Orleans no call, the season after, pass interference was just ridiculously called. And I just think that sometimes you just got to let the players play. I think there's like in the Philly Kansas City thing, even though it was the right call to make, I think sometimes you just need to let players play. Yeah. And I think unless it has, like I was saying, unless it has game-changing implications, then I don't think that you have to over-review and analyze everything.
Yeah, and like I was just thinking about like the Chiefs-Bengals AFC Championship game where they didn't call roughing the passer on Joe Burrow. So I was just like curious what you guys had thoughts about that, because I thought that was roughing the passer because that was more than 2 seconds.
Yeah. Well, and it's just so, I think that there are so many times where it's so blatantly obvious roughing the passer, and then there are so many times where it's so blatantly obvious not roughing the passer. Like,
exactly.
If you barely touch the quarterback and he flops, that should not be roughing the passer. So.
All right. Any other thoughts before we move on?
I had one.
Sure.
If they're gonna make a pen or like a change to the rule about roughing the passer, right? Should we also take a look at the kind of play that cost the Bengals the AFC Championship and be able to review a play like that? Where you hit the quarterback out of bounds?
But that was obvious, though.
That one, I don't think that's not roughing the passer, though. That's late hit out of bounds.
No, that's not. I know it's not. But I was just saying, should something like that be implemented in the future? If there's like a late game situation like that, and like your player barely touches the player going out of bounds, and maybe does it on accident, and maybe you take a look at it.
See, yeah, but that's not the instance with the Kansas City Cincinnati one. It was so obvious. Like he literally shoved him when he was already out of bounds. So I don't think that one applies to this idea. But I do think that I don't think it happens too often though. That's if we start seeing it being a reoccurring thing, then yeah. But I think the one in the AFC champion or not AFC, AFC championship.
AFC championship.
Yeah, the one in the AFC championship,
It was so obvious. Like he was out of bounds and he still pushed him. Like he didn't go like this, like barely touch him, and he wasn't barely on the line. Like he was fully out of bounds and he still shoved him. It was so obvious.
Yep.
So that's my thinking.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I agree with Thatcher on that. There's not really anything you could do about that because it's a late hit out of bounds. Like the whistle's already blown and you push him. So yeah. I agree with Thatcher. I don't really think that should be a factor of being reviewed.
Unless we start seeing it over and over.
Like, yeah, if it's over and over again, then yes. But like right now, no.
Yeah.
Also notice how this rule went into effect as soon as Brady got out of the league.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's all Mahomes. It's going to be a repeat with Mahomes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Broncos hired the full staff now. They're only missing a running back coach, to my knowledge. So the offensive coordinator is Joe Lombardi. I do not really like this hiring, in my opinion, just because of what happened with the Chargers last year. But who knows? Might be better for Russ, everybody else. Defense corner is Vance Joseph. I actually like this hire because Vance Joseph is obviously the head coach in Denver from 2017 to 2018, 2 seasons. So I do like this hiring because he's already familiar with Denver and also most of the defensive players. And then special teams coach is Ben Kotwicha. I don't know how to say his last name, Kotwicha. And then assistant coach Chris Banjo, who just retired last week as well. What do you guys think about the Joe Lombardi, Vance Joseph hiring?
I think it makes sense. I think that they shouldn't. I think some of these get overly, again, sometimes like these little hires get over analyzed. So I think until you see something that really shows that they have a huge impact, then I'm not worried. Joe Lombardi was with New Orleans for a while, so he and Sean Payton have a connection, just like Chris Banjo. So, and I believe was it Zach Strief? Did he also? I believe that he's part
he's
of
the
Sean
O-line
Payton's
coach.
staff.
He's the O-line coach.
That's a good pickup. That one's good. I think it's just Sean Payton showing that he has connections and that he's going to bring those connections in. So,
So Davis Webb's the quarterback coach now. Younger than Russ.
28 and 34.
Yep. And something really else to go over with his staff. I think Vance Joseph is a good hiring, and he's got a good staff with him too. So there's two defensive coaches that stay. I think it was Christian Parker and Greg Munski who stayed.
Sean will give them a lot of control. Sean loves to give his defensive guys the work. Like, when you look at his time in New Orleans, he gave Dennis Allen that defense. It was his to run, and he ran it really, really well. Now Dennis Allen's having to run a whole team. That's not great, but no, it's a good hiring, and I think the key hiring is Sean Payton, so he's going to change that team.
I cannot stop yawning. Holy crap! Sorry. All right. That was like the main hiring that was to be covered.
Yeah, since the Bieniemy.
Yep, since Bieniemy.
Oh, got something to talk about to lead into the draft. If we're going to talk about draft,
yeah,
a little more. Kentucky quarterback Will Levis, another top quarterback, will throw in Indy at the scouting combine, and he will join C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson as the top passers to do so.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you have to. I mean, we also touched on the fact that we don't think that the combine does a lot, just like Pro Day, but I think it shows that you're not scared either. That's what makes me, like, with Bryce Young, like, bro, why aren't you going to go throw? Because it's like we were saying, Kenny Pickett didn't want his hands measured. Why? Because they were tiny, and that would scare people away. Like, dude,
why do you think
go.
Tyler didn't throw? Because he's short.
Like, dude, just go. Because one way or another, you're going to end up on that draft stage, and people are going to think you're short. People are going to think you're too small.
They're going to see you next to Goodell.
But, like, you're already going to see that, like, you might as well just get it over with, And I just think rather than hide away
and do your stupid pro day and throw 50-yard bombs with no defenders, might as well go on a stage where it matters a little bit more and you are under a lot more eyes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Combine has kind of gone away from importance too. I think Senior Bowl plays a lot more importance than Combine.
Yeah, and I think Combine is better than Pro Day.
Oh yeah,
because you have all 32 teams there.
Right.
I think it's just nice to scout it out
with NFL coaches and stuff like that there to actually get you through stuff.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So that's that's what you should be. I think Pro Day should not be a thing unless you want to put up extra draft stock. If that draft stock is not up enough already.
Well, and we saw this with, I think that Zach Wilson throw did play a factor, maybe not a large one. So I think, but I'm like, if I'm an NFL GM, I'm not taking any of that into account. Again, we're all like, here, you made a 50-yard throw with no defenders, no helmet, no pads, no game environment, no nothing. And you made a pass. That shouldn't have a big impact on your draft stock, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I think we should go back.
Max Duggan's throwing, right?
Yeah, I believe so. I think we should go back to that idea of if you're inside the top 10, what quarterbacks are you wanting? If you were to pick, and if we were talking, so Houston at 2 is obviously the big one right now to talk about. I still think Chicago at 1. I think they're gonna do something weird. I think it might just happen on draft day though. I think we're gonna have to wait. But
I still think Chicago trades the first pick away.
I think they trade their first pick away, or I think they trade their quarterback away. It's going to be one of those two. They will not have, I do not believe they will be having their current quarterback, Justin Fields, as their quarterback and drafting number 1 overall. They're going to do one or the other. So, okay. So Houston at 2. I know we talked about this for a minute, but if you don't draft Bryce Young, who are you guys drafting at 2 for the Houston Texans?
Stroud.
I would say Stroud, Levis, Max Duggan could be up there. Look at TCU.
Yeah, I think if you're going to take a smaller guy, which would be Bryce Young, and Duggan is not super tall, big either. I think I would rather have Duggan over Young just because I don't know. I just like his grit. I like Duggan, and I just I don't know. Bryce Young is giving me Tua vibes, and we already have seen how that's worked out. So
plus Bryce Young is left-handed too.
Yeah. So is he?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I swear that people have been calling him the right-handed Tua.
Yeah,
brother. I don't know.
There is a quarterback in this.
There's a picture of him throwing right-handed.
Oh, well then I think you're right though. I think there is a left-handed quarterback in this draft. I don't know. Either way, I agree with you guys. I think that for me it would be Stroud or Levis. I think Levis just is a really big guy. I think I like his tangibles. I like the fact that he's big. He's got a big arm. He can move. He can run. That I think plays a big factor. And then Stroud's bigger too. And I think Stroud has proven it in big games, I think. And I don't necessarily believe Young has to the same extent that Stroud has.
Yeah. And I think Alabama's just, I don't know, it's just Alabama. They don't play hard teams.
Until the very end.
Until the very end. And that's where it really counts.
I mean, they lost to LSU. But
they lost to LSU. They lost to Tennessee. Who else did they lose to? They lost to one more team, I thought.
Well, they lost in the they lost to hang on, I'll find it.
Oh my god, that was
didn't they lose to Georgia? They lost to Georgia, right?
No.
Because I think they played Georgia in the regular season.
Yes.
So they would have lost to them too.
Yeah, that's the case.
That weekend of when Tennessee beat Bama, that was such a great weekend of sports because that's the same weekend that USC lost to Utah. Yeah. And so that was just, and then BYU lost to Like, it was just a whole bunch of just greatness, just a whole bunch of greatness that week. And so that was such a great weekend. That was so much fun. I don't think I've ever screamed louder at a football game than I did at that Utah USC game.
I would say Oregon's up there too.
Bama only lost twice in the regular season, but the thing is because I remember when everybody was saying that they could have snuck into the playoffs with 2 losses. So they lost to LSU and they lost to Tennessee,
who were both
did not play Georgia.
But the only reason Alabama was snuck in TCU and who was it?
Michigan?
I think TCU did lose that last weekend anyways, and they were still in.
Yeah, but they're still in.
Yeah, which I think deservedly so. I mean, we saw it. They actually won. That's what I was so impressed with about TCU is they actually won. Like, how many years in a row have we had these like Cinderella stories and then they get clobbered? Like Cincinnati and who was the same year when LSU won it? Who was the Oklahoma? They got clobbered by LSU. Like Michigan State was like one of the first couple of years of the college championship. Like that's why I was really impressed with TCU is they actually won.
And then they got clobbered in the national championship.
But they still made the national championship.
Georgia is so good. Georgia is going to be, and they're going to be right up there next year because
even though Stetson's leaving.
Stetson wasn't as important as I think a lot of people think that he was.
Like, how come we're not talking about Stetson Bennett being a top 10 draft pick if he won back-to-back national championships? Because he's not good enough.
He's going to be a 4th or 5th round talent.
He's going to be undrafted. Calling it right now. There are teams that are saying that, like, are debating if he's even worth being picked in the draft. So if that's the question, then why should he even be picked at all? Like, as a Saints fan, I wouldn't want him.
Plus,
he's already 25. Like,
yeah.
Isn't Hendon Hooker 25 too?
Hooker's, I think, 24. But I think I like Hooker. I like Hooker a lot more than I like Bennett as a talent, at least.
I would say so.
Hendon Hooker is 25. He just turned 25 on the 13th of January.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah. But I think I like Hendon Hooker's tangibles a lot more too. Like the kind of things that we're talking about where it's like I think Hendon's bigger. Hendon's more mobile. Hendon has a better arm. Because, I mean, Hendon Hooker's 6'4", 222. And Stetson Bennett is, let's see. He's smaller.
Yeah.
Stetson's 5'11".
Yeah, I was like, he's Bryce Young size.
He's 5'11", 190. No, thank you.
That's Bryce Young size.
Yeah, I think Bryce Young's 5'10", isn't he?
He's 5'10" and a half.
Yeah, generous.
That's being generous.
But everywhere you go, it says he's 6 foot, which he's not 6 foot.
He's not. He is not.
And it says he's 194. I'm not buying that either. But
No.
Anyways, I think in terms of quarterbacks in this draft, we will always see reaches in the draft. I believe that there will be a few different reaches in this first round for quarterbacks. I think that Richardson is going to be a reach because I really like him. But if he goes top 5, top 10, I think that's a major reach.
If he falls, do you think Baltimore gets him?
Well, it depends if they trade Lamar. They're not going to draft Richardson and then trade Lamar. They would have to trade Lamar first.
And also, something that if you guys don't mind, I was just scrolling Twitter earlier today. They said there's a scenario where the Giants could, if Daniel Jones if they're not going to offer him 45 million plus like he's looking for, they could tag him and say, go find it somewhere else and go trade him. And so do we think we could see Daniel Jones be moved and then the Giants could go with a quarterback in the draft?
Well, the Giants pick pretty late in the draft. They pick, I think, 25.
Well, this is a loaded quarterback draft, though.
Yes and no. I think there's a top 2 or 3, and then I think there's the rest. Regardless of size, I think Bryce Young is number 1 or 2 in the draft. And then I would go with Stroud, and then I would say Levis. And then I think everybody after that is in a different class. I think it's kind of like what we've seen in the past years where it's like we believe like, Burrow and Herbert were like up there, and well, actually at the time they thought Tua too, but then everybody else. Like I just think that there's different. I don't think that quarterbacks are going to be drafted 25, 26, 27, 28. I think that there's going to be like 3 in the top 10, and then I think it's going to be a while.
So are we good with the quarterbacks, or do we want to continue with quarterbacks?
I still just think that Anthony Richardson is a little unproven as a thrower, and he makes me nervous. I think he could be a really good talent though if he ends up in the right place.
Give him a good
he kind of reminds me of
line.
Yeah, he reminds me of Cam Newton / Josh Allen a little bit, but Josh Allen has a far better arm.
Yeah,
I think he just needs to prove it up to the combine.
I think he needs to prove it in like preseason because I think the combine doesn't make me feel good about anything.
I saw some stupid Philly fans on Twitter the other day talking about how they could like draft Anthony Richardson.
Well, they do have a top 10 pick.
I'm like, and they would draft Anthony Richardson. And I'm
like he's way more of a project. I think that Richardson needs to end up in a place where he has a really good coaching staff, a really good quarterback in front of him for him to learn from, and then take over.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Denver took him. To be honest,
but if he falls, he's not going to fall out of the first round.
I know, but what if he does?
He won't.
He won't.
There are too many. Let me read you the top 10 alone, and then you can tell me how many quarterbacks could be drafted. Okay, Chicago could take a quarterback. Houston will probably take a quarterback. Arizona, probably not, but you never know.
Kyler's injured.
Indianapolis will take a quarterback. Seahawks, I personally don't think they will, but they could. Lions, I personally don't think they will, but they could. Vegas will take a quarterback unless they trade for Rodgers. I still think that they could take a quarterback anyways. Falcons will probably take a quarterback. Carolina will probably take a quarterback. That's just the top 10.
That's nine. That's nine right there.
And then you have the Eagles. So there's no way. I don't think that AR-15 makes it out of the top 12.
Mm-mm.
So I think Hendon Hooker's a sleeper, though. I think people are forgetting about how good he was. But who are you going to transition to?
I was going to say, could we look at some of the route runners in this draft, like the playmakers? Because I wanted to look at I was looking at a couple of guys who I think could be like first round draft picks, obviously, but people are not expecting a whole. I mean, obviously Quentin Johnston is the top of the class with the wide receivers. Obviously, we know that Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson are the running backs. And then what is it? You got a 3-way tie at tight end with Darnell. Is it Darnell Washington? Is that his name? That's his name, right? Darnell Washington, Michael Mayer, and Dalton Kincaid, 3-way tie at tight end. I mean, you got to look at some of the other guys in here. I don't know why, but something's telling me that I need to keep my eye on Jordan Addison.
Oh, yeah. I don't know why I would say Jordan Addison is the wide receiver 1 in this draft.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm saying
wide receiver 1. I think he's so good. He torched every defense that he played against.
Yeah. He should be top 15. He should be a top 15 pick.
Yeah. I think Johnston will go first, but I think Addison, I think it's like a Garrett Wilson Olave situation where they're both really top tier, and I think both of them are going to hit, and both of them are going to hit wherever they go.
I also have another bold prediction.
Zay Flowers.
I think Smith and Jigba. Jigba is going to go. I think he's going to go late first round, or if he go either late first round, early second.
Injury problems for me though.
I know, but
I wouldn't draft him.
When he's on the field, though, he makes plays.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm saying if we're looking at the wide receivers that are on the board, if you're taking, I would take Flowers over him, and I think Flowers will be end of first, early second. And I think Rashee Rice is really, really good, too. He's SMU, right? I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's really good. I do think that you're right, though. I think Smith and Jigba, people need to remember how good he can be, but his injuries scare me.
Granted, he was going up against a running back at corner, but in that Rose Bowl game,
Yeah.
He torched Utah.
Well,
Like
yeah.
he didn't just like beat them. Like he torched them. He was Stroud's number one option on that game in that game.
There's
Yeah.
no Olave, no Garrett Wilson because they're
He
sat
stepped
out.
up. He stepped up.
Yeah. I like him. But I think I would not spend a first rounder on him. I'd be a little too nervous to spend a first rounder on him.
Yeah.
His
I
injury
agree.
problems make me really nervous because it's consecutive. Like injured, comes back for like a game, injured, come back for a couple games, injured. Like it's not like a Hendon Hooker where he's like out, but he showed how good he was before he's out. But like injured back, injured back, injured back. I don't like that.
It's kind of like Michael Thomas.
Yeah, it's like Michael Thomas.
So those Ohio State receivers, you know.
Yeah, except Ohio State's wide receiver university. We've been over this.
It is.
Yeah.
McLaurin hasn't gotten hurt yet.
Yeah,
That's
but
true.
McLaurin's a bigger dude. Like he's bigger. Like that's what makes me feel better about him. That's why I think Quentin Johnson is going to be really good, is because he's big.
I also would like to look at the running backs right now. Jameer Gibbs and Bijan Robinson.
Bijan's number one. Bijan's number one. He is
over Jameer.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Watching Jameer in Alabama, he was good.
Bijan's number one. Bijan
I'm not
might be one
arguing
of
that
the
Bijan's
best.
number one, but I mean Jameer is obviously the clear number two. Because
Well, I didn't say but I'm saying Bijan is the clear number one.
But do we think Bijan is going to go in the top 20, or do we think
I
don't
think he
think-
should.
I don't think a running back's going to get drafted in the first round.
I think there will be one
I
in the
think-
first round, but I think outside of the
Buffalo.
top 20, I think Buffalo is going to. But the thing is I think they need to give.
They need to give James Cook a chance.
I don't know. I could also see maybe. I was trying to think of like where like is it Bijan? It's Bijan, right? I keep calling him by the wrong name.
Bijan, like the
Bijan,
J is
Bijan.
yeah.
I watched him at Texas. He is a stud. He is a stud. I could see him, a team that needs a running back right now that has a good enough offense as it is right now, that could, like, if you plug a guy like Bijan in there and he could make plays and be like one of the focal points of the offense, but still have great receivers and a great tight end. They don't have their pick anymore, unfortunately, but Miami doesn't have their pick anymore, but
they're way out of the. I don't know when their first pick is.
I
Second
get
round.
the whole whole tampering thing, but like,
Here's what I'm looking at as I think here's where your running backs are going to go. Because you have, so let's just start at 20. I don't think they're going to go to the Seahawks because they have Kenneth Walker.
Yep.
He's not going to go to the Chargers. They have Austin Eckler. I don't think he's going to go to Baltimore because I think J.K. Dobbins is pretty good. He's not going to go to Minnesota because they have two really good running backs. He's not going to go to Jacksonville because ETN's their future. The Giants are going to re-sign Saquon. If they don't, then he could go there.
Yeah. I was about to say, if Saquon doesn't,
right? Then
that's when a running back gets drafted.
But here's what I'm saying is, so you look at from there. So 25 is the Giants. 26 could take a running back because they're in trouble. They have to re-sign both of their running backs.
Who's 26 again?
26 is the Cowboys.
Okay.
And then 27 is Buffalo, so that could be, but I think they need to give James Cook. Then the Bengals won't do it. I mean, they're getting rid of Pirine, but
they might lose. They might go Mixon too.
I don't think they'll let go of Mixon. And then the Saints will not take one in the first round. I think they'll take one later, but they won't take one in the first round. And then you have like the Chiefs, but they have Pacheco. Eagles, I think, will re-sign Sanders. So I just would be really, I think you're right. I think I'd be really surprised to see a running back go in the first.
Yeah.
Tajay Spears out of Tulane is somebody that you need to keep your eye on. He's going to go in like the third round. He is really, 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 really good. But he's going to go in like the third or fourth, but he's really good. And
I could say the same thing about Quinn Ewers too.
Who?
Quinn Ewers, the Texans quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
That's another name to look out for.
Yeah. Is he? I thought he was returning to Texas, though.
Yeah, I thought it was too.
Let me check. I'll check. But Doctor, you want to take us out?
Yeah. I I think we're about there, right? I mean,
Yeah, we are.
I'm sure next week we can go over maybe some more MLB stuff or some NBA stuff. Right now, with NBA just getting back to it, I mean, KD hasn't even played his first.
Lots has happened though.
KD hasn't even played his first game yet, though, with the Suns.
He's supposed to play yesterday, though.
He was supposed to, but he hasn't. So, yeah, I mean, pretty even for the little bit of news we had, it was interesting news. And draft time is really fun. The NFL draft time is super fun, really fun to talk about. I was obsessed with it last year. So, yeah, I think unless you guys had anything else, I think we're about good. Yeah.
Sorry, Zach.
We're good. I was just gonna say Dame dropped 71.
And also shout out to the Clippers and the Kings for going 176, 175.
That was so crazy. It was like watching the NBA All-Star game.
And then they hit like 3/4 court back-to-back shots that didn't count. Embiid and then Paul George. Like, whatever.
Looking like the Miz out there, bro.
For real.
All right, guys. Well, thank you guys for watching another episode of Take It to the House. I hope you all enjoy your week, and hopefully some fun sports news pops up, and we will catch you guys on the next one. See ya.
Free agency start next week.